from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
A very good morning to you with the news at this time. I am Tiana Jordan. The news is brought to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. To begin the news, here's a look at the leads. An opposition party says the Environmental Protection Agency should assess the impact that radioactive materials can have on persons and the nearby Demerara River. The animal inspector who shot dead herself in a police station compound was a psychiatric patient. A Guyana-born man has been shot dead in upstate New York. In regional news, a top appeals court says no to same-sex marriage in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. Antiguans and Barbudans are to pay more for gasoline and diesel. For the international news, we'll bring to you the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service. The details of these and other stories will be coming up right here in just a moment.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now the news in detail. The Alliance for Change, AFC, is calling on the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to reconsider its decision that an environmental impact assessment is not necessary for a facility to store equipment with radioactive sources. The facility is to be housed at Covenden East Bank, Demerara. The AFC says the facility is located 100 feet away from the public road and just over 1,000 feet from the Demerara River. That party fears that people can be exposed to radioactive materials on the roadway and the Demerara River can be easily polluted, with the compound also hosting bonds for other companies in the oil and gas sector. The AFC says this is a clear indication that numerous persons can be possibly exposed. A 19-year-old man who was born in Guyana was killed Sunday morning after he was shot inside a home in Buffalo, upstate New York. He has been identified as 19-year-old Royden Cave, a student of SUNY Buffalo State College. Buffalo police say the shooting happened shortly after 3 hours 40 on Sunday morning at what police described as a party or gathering at an off-campus gathering. Cave was taken by ambulance to a hospital where he later died. College students identified him as Royden Cave, who was a freshman criminal justice major. Before going to college, he lived with his Guyanese parents in Brooklyn, New York. He was the son of Patrick Cave, a former employee of the now-defunct Guyana Broadcasting Corporation. Police did not release any further details about the shooting. Police asked anyone with information to call or text the department's confidential. An official of the Guyana Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals shot herself to death in the compound of the Brickdam police station. Police say 49-year-old Trudy DeHart committed suicide using a stun gun which she used at work. The incident occurred at about 9 a.m. near the Enquiries section of the Brickdam police station. Investigators believe that the incident stemmed from a family dispute as her husband moved out of their home 1 week ago and went to live with his father at Podroin West Bank, Demerara. Police say 10 minutes before she committed suicide, she confronted her husband and her son on Camp and Regent Streets in front of City Mall, where she took an object which was wrapped in a yellow cloth and hit her husband's motorcar. The man subsequently drove to the Brickdam police station, where the woman followed him. According to police, after she was escorted into the inquiry's office, Dehart put an object that was concealed in a black plastic bag to her right side head. A clicking sound was heard, she fell down and was subsequently pronounced dead. Police say she was a patient at the psychiatric clinic. A Guyana Defense Force corporal has been stabbed to death at a wedding house during a dispute over the music that was being played. He has been identified as 28-year-old Chavez Mangle of Enterprise, East Coast, Demerara. He was stabbed shortly after midnight at Lot 142 Good Hope, East Coast, Demerara. Police say they have arrested one person 5 houses away from where the incident took place. 2 knives and a pair of scissors were found in his pants waist. He told police that he sustained visible injuries to his forehead, left hand, and body because he was attacked at the wedding house. In all, investigators say they suspect 4 males who were armed with knives and cutlasses. According to an eyewitness, one of the suspects approached the DJ, inquiring about the music which at the time had stopped. Police were told that this caused other attendees at the wedding to gather at the DJ booth, where, according to the eyewitness, the suspect pulled a knife from his waist and stabbed Mangle to his right upper chest. The eyewitness confronted the suspect and was also stabbed to his left hand, while another suspect threw a bottle at him. The 4 males then armed themselves with glass bottles and began to throw the bottles at the building, after which they ran away. Police were also informed that a 24-year-old man who was the DJ at the wedding exited the yard during the ordeal and was confronted by one of the suspects. He told investigators that he was chopped to his left hand and relieved of a laptop valued at $130,000. A customs officer shot and injured 2 hearse cart operators who went to a vacant lot near his residence to cut grass for their animals. Police say the customs officer used a 9mm pistol, which is the property of the Guyana Revenue Authority, and opened fire on the men. The incident occurred at about 4 p.m. on Sunday at Curzon Park, Lebon Intention, LBI, East Coast, Demerara. One of the hearse cart operators, who is 30 years old, received injuries to his right leg, while the other operator, who is 36 years old, received injuries to his right foot. They have been admitted to the Georgetown Public Hospital and have undergone surgeries. The customs officer, who is 40 years old, alleges that one of the hearse cart operators attempted to enter his yard and he discharged the firearm in the air and then in the direction of the men. He has also surrendered the firearm and ammunition. And now in regional news. Activists supporting same-sex marriage in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda received a heavy blow on Monday following a ruling by a top appeals court in London. The United Kingdom's Privy Council, which serves as the final court of appeal for several islands in the Caribbean, sided with the government of Bermuda, which had fought a local Supreme Court's decision to allow gay marriage. The Privy Council also ruled that gays don't have the right to marry in the Cayman Islands based on its constitution. Leonardo Raznovich, an attorney who represented a gay couple seeking to get married in the Cayman Islands, told the Associated Press that he was shocked by the ruling. He described it as an affront to human dignity. Raznovich said he plans to fight the Privy Council's decision. Caribbean activists had hoped for a favorable ruling to help sway public opinion in a largely conservative region where colonial anti-sodomy laws remain on the books and same-sex marriage is rarely considered a right. One of 5 judges in the Bermuda case dissented. In its judgment, the Privy Council acknowledged that the historical background of marriage is one of the stigmatization, denigration, and victimization of gay people, and that the restriction of marriage to opposite-sex couples may create among gay people a sense of exclusion and stigma. A Canada-based Barbadian economist says if Barbados continues to borrow at the rate it has been doing for the past 2 years, the country could end up in a debt trap. Mr. Carlos Fort says he does not believe being under an International Monetary Fund program is inherently a bad move. He urged the government to be cautious with its borrowing. Mr. Ford says the level of borrowing dating back to 2.5 years ago is not sustainable. He was a guest speaker on the Democratic Labour Party's The First Republican Estimates Implications for Barbados discussion, which was held virtually. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Browne announced over the weekend that the government can no longer maintain the $4.63 gas price at the pumps across the country. He says the prices of gasoline and diesel will go up by at least $5.55. The move is in line with soaring oil prices following the February 24th invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Browne, who is also the Minister of Finance, detailed that the global increase of fuel prices has resulted in significant blows to Antigua and Barbuda's revenue, on top of losses endured throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. The Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister says revenues are already down by 20%, and to take a further hit would be very difficult. During the Prime Minister's weekly press appearance, he also warned of the very likely possibility of food price inflation due to the fallout in Europe. The British Virgin Islands Police Force has promoted 13 of its officers. BVI News reports that a number of them have been promoted to sergeants, inspectors, and one of the chief inspector rank, following the promotional exercise process that was held in 2021. Promotions and confirmations of officers are completed after a series of evaluations to include an application, a written and competency exam, and interview process. Commissioner of Police Mark Collins, while congratulating the officers for passing all the stages of the promotional exercise, invited others to hone their skills and move into position for advancement. And now for the international news, here's the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. The Prime Ministers of Poland, the Czech Republic and Slovenia are travelling to Kiev for talks with President Zelensky. Their train has crossed the Polish-Ukrainian border on its journey to the Ukrainian capital, which remains under Russian attack. The 3 leaders are travelling as representatives of the European Union. A statement said their visit would confirm the EU's unequivocal support for Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. Adam Easton reports from Warsaw.
The visit was arranged during the recent EU summit in Versailles, Michał Dworczyk, the head of the Polish Prime Minister's office, said. The 3 leaders, who are accompanied by the head of Poland's governing party, Jarosław Kaczyński, will present a broad package of EU support for Ukraine, he said. Their train has already crossed the Polish-Ukrainian border en route for Kyiv. Mr. Dworczyk reiterated that NATO will not engage militarily in the war, but would do all it can to help Ukraine against the Russian attack.
The European Union has been giving more detail of a 4th set of sanctions it's agreed against Russia. It said the sanctions would help to cripple the ability of the Kremlin to finance the invasion of Ukraine. From Brussels, here's Jessica Parker.
More oligarchs and people who spread so-called disinformation will be added to the list of individuals subject to EU asset freezes. Sources have told the BBC that list will include Chelsea Football Club owner Roman Abramovich, who's already been sanctioned by the UK. There'll also be a ban on exporting luxury goods, such as expensive cars and jewellery, to Russia. Also, restrictions on the import of Russian steel products and on new investments in the Russian energy sector.
Emergency workers in Kiev say 2 people have been killed by a Russian airstrike that struck an apartment block and set it on fire as Russia's war against Ukraine enters its 20th day. Several other residential buildings have been damaged by attacks, but generals defending the capital say the city has many features that will help them keep the invaders out, including the Dnieper River and its tributaries. James Waterhouse is in Kiev.
Ukraine's government says one of its priorities is reinforcing its air and missile defences, which have proved to be very effective to this point. You can see them launched into the air when there's something flying overhead, and they light up the sky when they detonate on impact. But they can't shield people from all of the dangers of this war.
Ukraine says it will make a new attempt to deliver humanitarian supplies to civilians trapped in the besieged city of Mariupol today. The Deputy Prime Minister, Irina Vereshchuk, said she hoped the vehicles carrying food, water and medicine would be allowed through and would be able to evacuate civilians on their return. She also expressed hope that routes to other cities under attack would also be open. Ukraine says more than 4,000 people were evacuated from frontline cities on Monday through 7 humanitarian corridors. World news from the BBC. Russian civil rights activists have expressed concern over the safety of a journalist who interrupted a live television news bulletin to protest against the invasion of Ukraine. Marina Avsyannikova has been arrested and is being investigated under a law that bans what the authorities judge to be false information about the armed forces. Ms. Avsyannikova, an editor at Russia's flagship Channel 1, ran behind the newsreader during Monday's main evening news, carrying a sign with the text, "Stop the war, don't believe the propaganda, they are lying to you here." In a message recorded beforehand, she blamed President Putin for the war and said that her father was Ukrainian. In other news, Human Rights Watch says at least 100 civilians in Mali have been killed since December by the army as well as Islamist militants. It says most of the victims were summarily executed and they included children. Our West Africa correspondent Samesex reports.
The human rights group has described the killings as war crimes and called on Mali's ruling junta to investigate immediately and suspend military personnel implicated. Malian security forces are said to have committed the abuses during counter-terrorism operations against Islamist fighters linked to al-Qaeda. However, Mali's government has denied that its military carried out the executions. The West African country has been struggling to contain a jihadist extremist insurgency for more than a decade.
The Indian Defence Minister has told Parliament that the military is reviewing standard operating procedures for its weapons systems, days after a missile launched accidentally landed deep inside Pakistan. Rajnath Singh said the missile had been fired unintentionally during a routine maintenance exercise on Wednesday and had not caused any casualties. The Pakistani Foreign Ministry has demanded a joint probe into the incident. China has urged the South Asian neighbours to set up a reporting mechanism to share information and avoid such incidents in future. BBC News.
The news was brought to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
Here now is a recap of the leads. An opposition party says the Environmental Protection Agency should assess the impact that radioactive materials can have on persons and the nearby Demerara River. The animal inspector who shot dead herself in a police station compound was a psychiatric patient. A Guyana-born man has been shot dead in upstate New York. In regional news, A top appeals court says no to same-sex marriage in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. Antiguans and Barbudans are to pay more for gasoline and diesel. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the Newstalk Radio Newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.